Welcome to Elderly Pathways, a place to listen, to accompany, and to gently hold the unspoken thoughts of old age. This channel is not merely about physical health, but about the hidden corners of the elderly heart, the quiet fears, the silent questions, the loneliness when children are busy, and when aging softly knocks at the door. Here, every story, every shared moment becomes a bridge of connection. A small lamp lighting the way through days that no longer rush, dear elder friends. Have you ever heard of a relative? Someone who was just sitting with you yesterday, smiling over dinner, and then, just a few days later, silently passed away, like a leaf falling in the stillness of autumn. No major illness, no sudden accident, and yet they left behind a space so empty it echoed. Could it be that their farewell had already begun? Signaled by subtle signs we overlook today, I invite you to journey with me through 5 silent signs that may indicate an elder is nearing the final chapter of life. Please stay with me till the end, for the 5th sign is the most tender farewell, and perhaps the one that haunts us the most. Sign 1. Sudden loss of appetite. Dear friends, have you ever noticed how an elderly family member suddenly eats far less, showing no interest in foods they once loved? Once, mealtime was joy, a gathering, a celebration. But now they pick at their plate, sip only a few spoonfuls of porridge, or go an entire day with just a few sips of water. Even once favorite dishes, sweet and sour soup, caramelized fish, become tasteless. People often say they are just old. Of course they eat less, or maybe their digestion is weak. But what if this is the body's first quiet whisper that it's preparing to say goodbye? Let me tell you about Grandpa Bay, the grandfather of a dear friend. He was known for his cheerfulness and his deep love for traditional countryside meals. But a few months ago, my friend called with a trembling voice. Grandpa does not eat anymore. He just looks at the soup and says, "I am not hungry." Everyone took turns preparing different meals, encouraging him to eat. But all they got was a gentle shake of the head and a distant gaze. And then, one quiet morning, Grandpa Bay passed away peacefully in his sleep and without a word. It was a shock. He had just been sunbathing in the garden the day before. Only then did they realize his disinterest in food was a quiet signal, subtle, gentle, but missed by all. Dear friends, as we age, the body changes. Digestion slows, thirst fades, hunger disappears. Many families believe if they eat more, they will regain strength. But for someone nearing the end, forcing food can sometimes cause more harm than good. What matters more is gentleness. Break meals into smaller portions. Serve soft, easy-to-digest foods. Do not force, simply invite, and do not feel hurt if they decline. Have you ever experienced something like Grandpa Bay? Noticed how a loved one gradually lost interest in family meals? If you have, please share your story in the comments. Not to grieve, but to understand, to listen, and perhaps to notice the signs our loved ones are gently trying to send. Sign 2. Unusual extended sleeping. Dear friends, have you noticed someone older in your family sleeping more? Sleeping deeply throughout the day, yet still feeling tired. Once they rose early, swept the yard, brewed tea, listened to morning news, and chatted about the old days. But now they barely leave the bed. After meals, they lie down again. Some days they wake only briefly, then drift back into dreams. You may hear old age brings more sleep, but friends, some sleep is not rest. It is a gentle prelude to farewell. Let me tell you about Granny Moy, the great-grandmother of a friend. Known for her early rising and flower tending, she suddenly began sleeping for most of the day. No fever, no illness, just fatigue. When awake, she only smiled faintly. Then one day she sat up, unexpectedly bright and clear-eyed. She called all her family together and gave heartfelt advice. She finished her entire bowl of porridge and said, "That was delicious." Everyone rejoiced, thinking she was getting better. That night, she passed away peacefully in her sleep remains. As the body weakens, sleep becomes a sanctuary, a retreat from weariness, a step away from this world's noise. These are not ordinary naps. They are deep, long, and when they wake, they may no longer want to speak or engage. There is a rare phenomenon known as the dawn before dusk, a sudden return of clarity and joy right before passing. Those moments are precious, fragile, and achingly beautiful. Sign 3, withdrawing, speaking less, going quiet. Dear friends, have you noticed how an elder who once loved storytelling now grows quiet? They used to recount stories of the war, remember every neighbor's name, ask about every grandchild's studies and work. When called, they barely murmur a response. Sometimes they sit silently for hours, expressionless. Still, people say, maybe they are upset or they are getting distant. But what if it is not resentment, but a quiet pulling away, a soul no longer tied to daily worries? Let me share the story of Aunt Anna, my mother's aunt. She was lively, talkative, and could not sit still. Mornings, she visited the village market just to chat. But one afternoon, my mother called saying Aunt Sal has not said a word in days, just sits on the porch watching the clouds. Weeks later, she passed peacefully in her sleep. Only then did the family realize her silence was not sadness. It was surrender. It was readiness. When the soul tires, elders often detach from daily matters. They no longer ask who is cooking today or picking up the grandchildren. Their focus shifts inward, preparing themselves to leave gently, and sometimes they say things that chill us. I think it is my time soon. Last night, my father came to visit me. When I go to him, light incense for me. Not superstition, not fear, but calm acceptance. A whisper of goodbye before it is spoken aloud. What should we do in the face of this silence? Do not force them to talk. Do not scold them for being distant. Just sit beside them. Hold their hand. Listen, even if no words are spoken, because some moments do not need words. Just being present is everything. Sign 4, confusion, memory lapses, time disorientation. Dear friends, have you noticed a loved one asking repeated questions or losing track of time and place? They may forget names, events, or call their son by their late father's name. They might say things that sound dreamlike. Who are you? This house looks just like my mother's. Did I already eat? When can I go home? But home is not the one they live in now. It is their childhood home, full of memory and love. Let me tell you about Grandma Bill, the great-grandmother of a neighbor. Sharp-minded all her life. But then she began to forget. Her eyes would brighten as she described the guava trees from the 1960s, yet she could not recall her own granddaughter's name. She whispered, "My father came last night, stood by the window." These moments may sound eerie, but they reveal a heart drifting back to the purest times of youth, to love once felt. Sign 5, subtle but profound changes. A quiet goodbye. Have you noticed an elder suddenly change their behavior? The quiet one begins chatting warmly. The frugal one gives away treasured items. They offer gentle parting words. Keep this. Grandma saved it for you. Take care of each other when I am gone. These may seem like passing comments until the day comes when they are gone and you realize those were their final goodbyes. Let me share a true story. Uncle David, our neighbor, stern and silent his whole life, became unusually tender. He called each grandchild to him, gave them keepsakes, an old pen, a scarf from his youth. One afternoon, he arranged the flower pots, cleaned his photo frame, and stood quietly, soaking in his home, as if memorizing it for the last time. The next day, he was unusually bright, cheerful. Everyone thought he was recovering. That night, he passed dear friends. There are changes we barely notice, but they are the final messages left for us. Cleaning their room, not just for tidiness, but for dignity. Calling an old friend, not for chatter, but to say thank you, leaving specific wishes for their burial, not to frighten, but to ensure peace. Some elders even experience a burst of strength right before the end, eating well, walking again, speaking clearly. It is not recovery. It is the last sunrise before the eternal dusk. Friends, life is finite, but love is infinite. Let us cherish every moment with our elders. Do not wait until they are gone to realize what we have missed. Let our presence, our warmth, be the greatest gift we can give during their final days on earth. If you have ever been through such moments, please share your story in the comments. Your words may help someone else recognize a sign and love just in time. Do not forget to subscribe to Elderly Pathways Together. Let us preserve family bonds, honor our elders, and live peacefully in the time we have left.